Hi there 2033, this is Dr. Wilderman, and I am going to be talking to you today about creative leads. Well, actually the one type of creative lead that you're going to be working on for this particular assignment. So you should have already watched 2 video lectures to prepare for this assignment. That's going to be what is a feature, and then the one that's called creative leads. So specifically for this assignment, we are talking about one type of creative lead. That is called a focus lead. What it does is it focuses on the person that you would be writing the feature story about, and it places them either in a scene or in an anecdote, like a short story, that serves as the lead, the gateway into the start of the feature story. It's an interesting story, it paints an interesting picture, it's a way to get the reader's attention and make them want to keep reading your feature story. So feature leads are very different from basic news writing leads, okay? So what does a focus lead, what is that comprised of? Well, it's going to be about 1 to 3 paragraphs of the introductory material, your creative writing, okay? And then it's going to be a 4th or follow-up paragraph that we refer to as the nut graph. And the nut graph is the thing that kind of summarizes the why of the story, the reason that you are writing the story about the person at all. All right. So, and then before you get too worried that you have to write a full feature story, that's not what this assignment is. Okay. So the assignment is just the start of what would be a feature story. So what we're looking for at the end of this assignment is a 1 to 3 paragraph creative lead that is a focus lead, followed up by another paragraph or so that serves as the nut graph. It really serves as the who or the what, the who and the what of the story. All right. So, how are you going to make this? This introduction of a feature story happen? Your individual instructors are going to let you know who you're going to interview for this particular assignment. Normally we do something like having you go back to the partner that you interviewed early in the semester and having you re-interview that person. That may or may not work for the situation that you're in right now. So just listen to your individual instructors about who it is that you're going to interview for this particular assignment. Okay. Then a few other key vocabulary words that it will be helpful for you to know while you are working on this assignment. So first of all, let's talk about writing a scene. Okay, so part of a creative lead can be setting a scene. So what is a scene? It is painting a word picture, right? Painting a picture with words of the setting. All right, of the person in a particular setting. It could be your observations of the person. It could be like a recounting of what was going on around a person from a story that they're telling you. It is using the senses, what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch, what we feel, to enhance your writing. Okay, and I'll give you an example here in just a minute. All right, so that's what a scene refers to, scene setting in feature writing. Okay, then what is an anecdote? An anecdote is a brief, interesting story about a particular incident. That's really all it is. So you might be recounting an incident that the person told you. Okay, you might be summarizing it or weaving it together in a certain way to fit within the context of your story. All right, I'll give you an example of that too. Okay, and then a nut graph, that would be another vocabulary word that you should know. A nut graph really serves as the who and the what of a feature story, okay? You're going to spend a couple of paragraphs being creative in the way that you start this story. And then after those couple of paragraphs, you really need to focus in, all right? And there should be a sentence or two, maybe a full paragraph, that tells us the who and the what, the main reason that you're writing this story. All right? Okay. Then there's another term that we refer to in feature writing that we call color. All right? So color really just means vivid description, okay? It's probably going to be part of your scene setting. It's going to be small, specific details that really help bring the person or the situation that you're writing about to life. A couple other questions that you might have, I'll try to answer before you ask them. How long does a scene or an anecdote run, right? Or how long does the creative lead in general run? Okay. 1 to 3 paragraphs, keeping in mind that media writing paragraphs are generally shorter than your regular English essay writing paragraphs, okay? And then the nut graph, how long should that be? I've seen nut graphs that are just 1 sentence, and that works out okay. Normally, I would say a nut graph is 1 to 3 sentences. Sometimes a nut graph might need to be a couple of paragraphs, all right? But generally speaking, and I've written a lot of feature stories, the nut graph is maybe 1 to 3 sentences. Again, chat with your individual instructor in case they have a slightly different idea. But that is really what the start of a feature story is going to look like. And just keep in mind, you're writing the creative lead and you're ending with a nut graph. So probably a total of 4 or 5 media writing paragraphs is going to be what this assignment is going to look like at the end. Okay, now because for some people, it's not as easy to understand what this is if I'm just talking about it and just sharing the definitions with you. I'm going to give you an example of a focus lead and transitioning into a nut graph that's at the start of a story that I wrote for a magazine a couple years back. Yeah, I'm going to be that person and read you my own writing, but that's okay. All right, so creative lead, all right? On a mild yet overcast winter Friday, Monty Stewart sat in his well-kept but many years old truck, explaining his journey that began with a mission trip to Africa in 2003 and continues with his current full-time passion as the founder and director of a nonprofit centered in Northwest Oklahoma, dedicated to providing and filling nutritious meals to those in need, both close to home and across the globe. As he told this story in his gentle Western Okie drawl, he had just spent his morning with about 90 school children in Enid, Oklahoma, who had volunteered to help package the meals his organization provides. In just about 3 hours, they had packaged 31,536 meals. They seem to enjoy it, Monty said, of the kids and their volunteer work. They understand the need for it. Okay, so in that little introduction for a feature story that I did on this nonprofit that deals with underfed populations, okay, I introduced the guy who's the founder. You know a little bit about him now. You know he has an older truck, but he keeps it up nicely. You know he has a bit of an Oklahoma twang to his voice. You know that he was talking to me while leaning out of his truck, which is a very Oklahoma thing to do. So you get a little bit of a scene setting there, a little bit of an introduction to him. He was also recounting this story to me about being at the school with 90 kids in Enid. So what you have here is a little bit of scene setting and a little bit of anecdote, all right? You can do your lead all as scene setting, you can do your lead all as an anecdote, or you can use a combination of those 2 tactics. Either way is fine. That's about 3 short media paragraphs, all right? And then what comes next is a transition into the nut graph, into the why, what's the point, why am I writing the story about this guy? Okay. Shortly after that trip he mentioned in 2003 that spurred Monty Stewart and his wife Shelley's desire to do something big to combat the poverty, starvation, and food insecurity they witnessed, the couple began working with an already established organization, Kids Against Hunger. However, by 2012, the Stewarts had their own plans. We felt like we could feed more kids cheaper and easier, he said. This was mainly due to the farming knowledge that Monty had had growing up. So they amicably parted from Kids Against Hunger and started their own nonprofit, Stamp Out Starvation. Okay, that's where I would say the nut graph of my story ends, all right, with introducing the main reason that I was going to write this story was to talk about this specific Stamp Out Starvation nonprofit and what they did and how it was kind of an anomaly out in the northwest part of Oklahoma where there wasn't too much going on like this. All right, so hopefully that example helps a little bit. And once again, just to wrap up and recap, you're only writing the lead and the nut graph of what would be a potential feature story. Okay, we're not going to have you finish the feature story. So you're going to need to interview an individual and get enough information to write 1 to 3 paragraphs of a creative lead and another paragraph or so of a nut graph. All right. If you have more questions, direct them to your individual instructors, and good luck on this assignment.